Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at the 12 motorcycles everyone will regret buying in 2026. Number 12, Harley-Davidson Street 500. The Harley-Davidson Street 500 enters 2026 with almost nothing new, and that is the first warning sign for anyone in the USA thinking about getting one. It comes with a small update in trim colors, but there is no change in tech, comfort, or safety, which puts it behind other bikes in the same price range. Many riders already feel it has been left behind, and the gap will only grow in the coming year. The engine is often the part riders ask about, and here the Street 500 continues to fall short. Its V-twin is known for heat in slow traffic, a slow rush of power, and a dull feel at higher speeds. On open roads, the bike feels strained when you try to push it. For highway use in long stretches, the lack of strong pull becomes clear fast. The pricing is another point that pushes buyers away. Even on the used market, many examples still sit around $3,000 to $4,000, and for a bike with limited upgrades and a dated ride feel, that is not great value. Comfort is not its strong side either. The seat is narrow, the riding stance can feel tight for taller riders, and the suspension gives a rough feel over cracked roads. The final issue comes down to growth. Riders who start with the Street 500 often find themselves wanting to move on fast. It is not a bike that grows with you, and in 2026, that matters more than ever. Number 11, Indian Chief. The Indian Chief rolls into 2026 with a few small visual touches, but nothing that changes how it feels on the road. The core setup stays the same, and that is where trouble starts. Riders in the USA looking for a solid long-term cruiser want more updates, more comfort, and more tech for the money. Instead, the Chief sticks to an old layout that begins to feel dated once you compare it with other bikes in the same class and price range. The engine comes in with plenty of sound, but its weight and slow response hold it back. The Chief carries a lot of bulk, and the big twin asks for effort in slow traffic. When you roll out to highway speeds, the pull is steady but not sharp, and the bike can feel heavy when changing lanes or avoiding gaps. For riders who want easy handling, this can cause early frustration. The extra heat around the legs in warm states is another point many owners bring up. Now the price tag makes things harder to justify. Brand new models can climb towards $17,000, and even used ones tend to stay near $10,000 to $12,000. That cash range puts the Chief in direct reach of bikes that are lighter, smoother, and loaded with more modern parts. The biggest drawback in 2026 is that the Indian Chief no longer keeps up with what riders expect. You pay a lot, you get old-style features, and you face higher running costs. If you want a machine that grows with you and feels smooth day to day, this one will likely leave you wishing you chose something else. Number 10, Triumph Bonneville Bobber. The Triumph Bonneville Bobber steps into 2026 with only light cosmetic touches, and that sets the tone for the whole bike. It still looks classic, but when you compare it with the money it asks for, the lack of real updates makes it feel behind. Riders in the USA who want a mix of style, comfort, and day-to-day ease will notice fast that the Bobber leans too much on looks while ignoring parts that matter on the road. The engine brings in smooth sound, but the pull does not match the size or weight of the bike. At low speeds it feels flat, and in heavy traffic it needs more throttle work than expected. Once you reach open roads, the power still feels held back for something in this price group. The bike also carries more weight than it should, and that shows when turning in tight spaces or taking slow corners. The price tag makes the gap clearer. New models often reach toward $14,000, and even older ones sit in the $8,000 to $10,000 range. At those rates, many riders expect more comfort, stronger pull, and better road feel. Repairs also tend to cost more because parts are not cheap. Comfort is where the Bobber slips further. The single seat looks nice, but long rides turn tiring. The stiff setup and short travel suspension send bumps straight into the rider. By 2026, the Triumph Bonneville Bobber feels stuck between price and performance, offering less than the cost suggests. If you want a cruiser that handles daily rides with ease, saves money in the long run, and feels smooth on mixed roads, this one will likely fall short. Number 9, Harley-Davidson Pan America. The Harley-Davidson Pan America enters 2026 with a few tech touch-ups and mild software tuning, but nothing big enough to change how riders feel about it. The updates are small, the weight stays high, and the bike still struggles to match the balance and polish that most USA riders expect from a machine in this price range. For many, the Pan America feels like a bike that tried to jump into a tough class but never fully settled in. The engine brings strong numbers on paper, yet in daily use the story feels different. At low speeds, the motor can be jumpy and the heat around the legs builds fast in warm states. Once you push it harder, the heavy frame becomes the real issue. The cost is what hurts the most. New models sit close to $20,000, and even used ones often hover around $12,000 to $15,000. That puts it in direct range of machines that ride smoother, weigh less, and have a stronger record for long-term use. Repair bills also trend on the high side, with parts and labor pushing yearly spending far above what many riders plan for. Comfort has mixed results. The seat height is tall, and shorter riders often feel stretched. The suspension can feel harsh on broken pavement, and the long reach to the bars adds strain during longer rides. By 2026, the Harley-Davidson Pan America ends up as a bike that costs a lot, demands a lot, and gives less comfort in return. Number 8. Indian Scout Bobber. The Indian Scout Bobber moves into 2026 with only small color tweaks, and that leaves many riders in the USA feeling let down. It still looks sharp, but looks alone do not solve the core issues riders have raised for years. Without real upgrades in comfort, heat control, or ride feel, the Scout Bobber starts to feel old compared with other bikes in its class. The engine has good sound and a quick tone at first touch, but the real-world ride exposes its weak spots. Heat builds fast around the legs, especially in warm states, and slow traffic makes it worse. At highway speeds, the bike feels stiff and sends small shakes through the bars. It also sits low, which causes scraping in tight corners and leaves riders feeling limited. The price does not help. New models often sit around $13,000, and used ones still land between $7,000 and $9,000. At those numbers, riders expect better comfort, smoother handling, and more refined road feel. Repair parts for the Scout Bobber also cost more than many expect, which pushes yearly spending higher. For someone trying to stay within a fixed budget, this can turn into a steady drain. By 2026, the Indian Scout Bobber feels like a machine that never grew with the market. You pay a lot, you get a rough ride, and the long-term value simply does not match the cost. Number 7. Yamaha MT-10. The Yamaha MT-10 enters 2026 with tiny trim changes but no real upgrades where riders in the USA actually need them. It keeps the same rough edges in comfort, heat control, and daily ride feel. For a bike that costs this much, many riders expect a jump forward each year, but the MT-10 stays stuck, and that is where regret starts. The engine is strong on paper, but in real traffic it can feel harsh. The quick hit of power makes low-speed control tricky, and the heat that rises around the tank and legs becomes a problem in warm states. On highways, the motor pulls hard, but the buzz in the bars and pegs gets tiring. The handling also suffers because the bike sits tall and feels heavy when leaning into slow corners or weaving around tight gaps. The cost is where most riders start to rethink. New models often reach toward $14,000, and even used ones stay close to $9,000 or $10,000. With that kind of cash, riders expect smoother power control, better comfort, and less heat. Instead, the MT-10 brings higher insurance rates, higher parts cost, and more fuel use than many owners expect. By 2026, the Yamaha MT-10 feels like a machine built for a narrow type of rider, not someone who needs a mix of comfort, value, and steady control. If you spend this much money, you deserve a bike that fits daily life, not one that works only under perfect conditions. Number 6. BMW R18. The BMW R18 steps into 2026 with light trim updates, but nothing that fixes the main problems riders in the USA have pointed out since launch. It still stands out because of its size, but that size is also the reason many owners end up regretting it. The lack of real changes in comfort, handling, and heat control makes it feel stuck, while other brands move forward with smarter updates. The engine is big and has strong pull, but the weight of the R18 holds it back in daily use. At low speeds, the bike feels heavy and slow to react. In tight traffic, it demands effort just to keep steady lines. Once you reach highway speed, the motor feels fine, but the shakes through the bars and pegs add fatigue over long trips. Now the price tag is where regret really sets in. New models can climb towards $17,000, and even used ones often stay around $10,000 to $13,000. At this level, riders want easier handling, lower repair bills, and better long-term comfort. Instead, the R18 comes with high parts cost, expensive service fees, and insurance rates that add more pressure on the yearly budget. Many owners sell it early because the upkeep becomes more than they planned for. By 2026, the BMW R18 feels like a bike that asks for more money, more effort, and more patience than most riders want to give. Number 5. Harley-Davidson Sportster S. The Harley-Davidson Sportster S goes into 2026 with a small round of software tweaks and fresh colors, but nothing that fixes the parts riders in the USA keep calling out. It looks sharp and modern, but once you start using it day after day, the limits show fast. The lack of real updates in comfort and road feel makes it tough to justify the price. The engine is strong and loud, but the delivery feels jumpy at low speeds. In slow traffic, the throttle needs constant control, and the heat around the legs builds up quickly in warm states. On open roads, it pulls well, but the stiff frame and short travel suspension make bumps hit harder than they should. The price tag is where many riders start to regret the buy. New models often sit around $16,000, and even used ones stay in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. At that cost, riders want a bike that handles smooth roads, rough pavement, and long trips without extra effort. Instead, the Sportster S brings high insurance rates, pricey parts, and service fees that add up fast. For someone trying to keep yearly spending steady, this becomes a real issue. Comfort also falls short. The low seat puts pressure on the lower back, and the bar position strains the wrists on longer rides. The hard suspension sends every crack in the road straight to the rider. By 2026, the Harley-Davidson Sportster S feels like a bike built for short bursts, not daily life. You pay a lot, you get limited comfort, and long-term use reveals more strain than value. Number 4. Triumph Rocket 3. The Triumph Rocket 3 enters 2026 with a light set of cosmetic touches, but nothing that deals with the real concerns riders in the USA keep bringing up. It still carries its huge engine and bold stance, but those same traits turn into daily drawbacks. Without updates in comfort, heat control, and weight management, the Rocket 3 feels more like a showpiece than a machine built for regular use. The engine is massive and full of pull, but that size also brings trouble. At low speeds, the bike feels heavy and slow to settle. In city traffic, the weight fights you at every turn, and keeping balance at walking pace takes steady effort. Heat around the legs becomes rough in warm states, and the motor shakes more than riders expect for something this expensive. The price raises the regret even more. New units sit close to $23,000, and used ones often land between $14,000 and $17,000. For that kind of money, riders want easy handling, steady comfort, and lower upkeep. Instead, the Rocket 3 brings high parts costs, heavy service bills, and insurance rates that jump because of the engine size. By 2026, the Triumph Rocket 3 becomes a bike riders admire from a distance, but struggle to enjoy day to day. It costs a lot, asks a lot, and gives less comfort in return. Number 3. Indian Scout 60. The Indian Scout 60 moves into 2026 with small color updates, but the real ride stays mostly unchanged. For many riders in the USA, that is a problem because the bike already had a list of weak points that needed attention. It still looks neat in the showroom, but the moment you start using it for daily trips, the limits show up fast. The engine sounds smooth at first, but once you roll through slow traffic, it gives off more heat than riders expect from a mid-size cruiser. In warm states, this becomes uncomfortable within minutes. When you take it onto the highway, the pull feels steady but not lively, and the bike does not give the confidence riders want when they need to move through cars or take long sweeping curves. The low stance also catches people off guard because the pegs touch the pavement sooner than expected, which affects control on tighter roads. Price makes the situation tougher. New units often start near $10,000 and even used ones stay around $6,000 to $8,000. Many riders step into this price range expecting a bike that stays cheap to run, but the Scout 60 is not as light on the wallet as people think. By 2026, the Indian Scout 60 ends up offering style but not enough comfort, not enough ease, and not enough long-term value. Number 2. Harley-Davidson Nightster. The Harley-Davidson Nightster enters 2026 looking sharp on the surface, but once you look past the styling, the cracks appear fast. Riders in the USA who try it for daily use often walk away surprised by how many small issues pile up over time. Harley added mild software tweaks this year, but nothing that fixes the core problems riders brought up in earlier models. The engine has quick response, but it feels restless in slow traffic. The throttle jumps when you try to ease through tight spots, which makes city riding tense instead of smooth. Heat around the tank and legs shows up early, especially in warm regions. Once you get on the highway, the motor feels eager, but the front end stays nervous over patched pavement and the bike never settles into a relaxed rhythm. Money is another reason riders second-guess the purchase. New Nightster units often reach toward $13,000, and even used ones stay in the $9,000 to $11,000 zone. For that kind of cash, riders expect a setup that works both in crowded cities and on long trips. Instead, the Nightster brings repair bills that rise faster than expected and parts pricing that pushes yearly spending higher than most planned for. Comfort is where many riders lose patience. The seat sits low but has little support, which leads to early back strain. By 2026, the Harley-Davidson Nightster ends up being a bike that shines in photos, but wears you down once the miles start to add up. Number 1. Kawasaki Eliminator. The Kawasaki Eliminator enters 2026 with a clean, simple look, but that is also where the problems begin. Riders in the USA who take it home often expect an easy cruiser with solid comfort and smooth manners, yet the bike ends up feeling more limited than its first impression suggests. Kawasaki added mild cosmetic updates this year, but nothing meaningful that changes the ride or fixes earlier complaints. The engine is light and quick to wake up, but the real ride exposes its weak side. At low speeds, the power band feels thin, so the bike needs more throttle just to stay steady in traffic. On faster roads, the pull flattens out early, leaving you wishing for more strength during merges or uphill climbs. Taller riders often feel cramped, while shorter riders struggle with the slightly stretched stance. The price adds more reasons for regret. New models sit around $6,000, which sounds fair, but the value drops once you see what competing bikes offer. Used units still land near $4,000 to $5,000, and for that much money, many riders expect smoother suspension, more comfort, and a stronger mid-range. Parts cost also climbs faster than expected because certain components are not cheap, and servicing it yearly can feel like paying more than the bike itself offers back. By 2026, the Kawasaki Eliminator ends up as a bike that looks good on paper, but leaves riders wanting more once the miles start to stack up. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. Make sure to like it and subscribe the channel for future upcoming videos.